Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucs. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast on this Tuesday, February 18th. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Get on over there. Let everybody know. And if you're looking for like a smaller link, tiny, the word tiny, .cc/JRecher, JAYRECHER. That's a way to kind of put it wherever you're at and to get right to my YouTube channel. Let's get those subscribers up. We're over 1,000. The trek to 2,000 starts now. A great show for you guys, as always, as I'm rocking my Manchester United jersey. It's been a rough year. I think the only good vibes that Manchester United get are from this show right here. This is actually my personalized one. I have my name on the back, which is one of my prized possessions. And even though they stink, I'm still going to rock with them to the break of dawn. Today, a very busy day. After the show, I'm heading over to the USF Baseball and Softball Complex. I will be on the call tonight. USF, Florida State, live from Red McEwen Field. If you're looking for something to do tonight with the schedule pretty open, get out there. It is going to be so much fun. Get your tickets now. They're very affordable. Go USFBulls.com. A lot of people have been telling me that there's these third-party sites where people are charging twice, if not 3 times as much as they really cost. And this is for all the sports. There's only one place you can go to get tickets for USF, and that's go USFBulls.com. Head over there. And yeah, going to be a good one tonight as the Bulls take on the Seminoles. I cannot wait. Shout out to David Terry. Thought on everybody. Appreciate you guys. Go Redbirds. You'll never walk alone. Yeah, you and your Liverpool. The stage is set. Thursday night. U.S. and Canada. We'll get into that here in a moment, including some breaking news right here on the Recher podcast. So come on in, get in on the conversation. Questions, comments, concerns, leave them there at the bottom. But some breaking news here momentarily. All right, at 12:30 today, we will have our guy, Jeff Attinella, joining us from Smack Apparel. You remember Jeff, college player at USF, played in the MLS. I'm going to ask him about MessiMania. And it was an incredible night for Team Tampa Bay. Over 40,000 people at Raymond James Stadium. We spoke to Martin Gramatica yesterday. We're going to speak to Jeff Attinella at 12:30 today. I also want to play the clip from Martin, what he said about meeting Lionel Messi. Well, Jeff's daughter actually got to walk out there with the team. So I want to hear from him what that experience was like and everything they have going up for Smack Apparel. That's a family conflicted too, because that's a Florida State house. He's a USF grad. So there's a battle, a civil war going on in the Attinella house today. 1 o'clock, my buddy Rick Ucchino is going to join us. Rick Ucchino from up there in Cincinnati. He does so much work, whether it's local radio, Sports Illustrated. T. Higgins, what is the future of T. Higgins there in Cincinnati with the Bengals? Because a lot of people are wondering, how will that affect a guy like Chris Godwin? So we'll talk to Rick about all things Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. The Reds, with spring training getting underway, what does he think about the prospects of Ellie De La Cruz and the Reds making the playoffs this year? And he's a big WWE guy. I met Rick a couple years ago at WrestleMania here at Raymond James Stadium. What does he have to say about Raw last night and who he thinks is going to match up at WrestleMania? And then at 1:30, John Romano from the Tampa Bay Times is going to join us to discuss the Rays and the latest in the stadium saga. This is just another thing that keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And for a while, it seemed like John was kind of, I don't want to say supporting the Rays, but kind of looking at their side and going, all right, this is what they're doing. This is what they're saying. But the article that he wrote here just a couple of days ago was really, I don't think scathing is a word that's, too harsh. it was really calling out the Rays on how they're handling this entire situation. And that's just something it's kind of, it's upsetting as a Rays fan. It's upsetting to see that that's what it's come to, where there's this bickering and you use the opportunity for the countdown opening day, which is a tradition there on WDAE, the flagship of the Tampa Bay Rays, which has been such a great celebration of the team over the years, where you had the Kevin Kiermaiers. I mean, I walked Chris Archer and Kevin Kiermaier to their car years ago. I mean, that's how important it was to have the players out there. There was fans there. It was just such a celebration of baseball, like, hey, baseball's coming back. And now this year, on the countdown opening day, we hear almost kind of like mudslinging towards the St. Pete City Council and the Pinellas County Commissioners. So where are we at in the entire situation? Now, it's good to see some, things on the field when it comes to the Rays. Shane McClanahan back on the bump today, throwing 97, throwing 98. I'm still optimistic when it comes to the team, the actual team on the field. But my God, this kind of stuff really needs to be rectified, because the deadline, as we all know, is March 31st, and the Rays have to prove, hey, this is where we're going to get the money from. This is how we're going to go, and we need to start this trek forward for a new stadium. Colleen Wright from the Tampa Bay Times has been with us a bunch of times, so we'll have her on as we get closer to that date. But John Romano is a guy that's been covering sports in this area for a very long time, so we'll see what he has to say about the entire situation. Hopefully we get some clarity over the next couple of weeks. All right, let's jump right into the Four Nations face-off, and we'll get right to the breaking news that we just heard just a little while ago for our Team USA fans out there. Charlie McAvoy is now out for the Four Nations face-off championship game against Canada on Thursday night. And the crazy thing about it is, as good as Charlie McAvoy has been, and we know the talent that he has offensively, it was his physical presence that really made a difference on Saturday night against Canada. Now, we've seen him for many years as a member of the Boston Bruins. I followed his career closely because he's a Long Island guy like myself. But when it was announced here in the last couple of days, he went to the hospital, and this is the update posted by the Bruins on their social media accounts. Charlie was admitted to Massachusetts General on Monday to undergo testing related to an upper body injury sustained during the Four Nations, and is currently being evaluated by Boston Bruins head team physician Peter Asness. He will not play for Team USA in the Four Nations face-off championship game on Thursday at TD Garden. The Boston Bruins will provide further updates on his condition and status as they become available. And it's heartbreaking to be able to see a guy that was such a big part of the win last Saturday night. And mind you, he made a mistake there on the only goal that Canada scored, that first goal. Connor McDavid, and I in hockey, you can see it. And all my friends that I was watching the game with, I said, you got to turn, you got to turn, you got to turn. There's a point where a defenseman has to realize, I have to switch from skating backwards to turn to skate forwards to be able to keep up with this guy, because if I don't do it in time, he's going to blow right past me. And as Connor McDavid's coming through the neutral zone, I said, you got to turn, you got to turn, you got to turn, you got to turn. He turned just a hair too late. McDavid blew by him. He doesn't have to get all the way behind you, but he just has to get a step past you to be able to get a shot off. He gets that backhander off, and he's able to put one past Connor Hellebuck. But Charlie McAvoy didn't drop his head. He didn't sulk. He didn't have this woe is me, oh my God, I can't believe I did. He went back out there and he hit anything in his path. It was Connor McDavid. It was Sidney Crosby. It didn't matter. He was wrecking shop for the Team USA blue line. So his presence will be sorely missed there when it comes to the decor for Team USA. Now, that's not it. That's not the only breaking news I got for you here on the Jay Recher podcast. Also, we're just finding this out. This is an announcement from everybody that is over there covering the Four Nations face-off in Boston. And this is from everybody over there that would report on it. Team USA was told an hour ago that they couldn't add anyone. Well, that is not true, because head coach Mike Sullivan has now said that Quinn Hughes is en route to join USA as an injury replacement. Wow. Unbelievable. unbelievable. Can you believe that? Quinn Hughes, who I don't think there's an argument, he is the best defenseman that this country has to offer. He wasn't 100%. He decided to take his name out of consideration after making the team. It wasn't consideration. He was on the team. But obviously, we know his brother Jack is on the team. But Quinn Hughes, the best defenseman for the U.S., is now being called on to replace Charlie McAvoy and play for the red, white, and blue tomorrow night. That is insane. I cannot believe that this is happening. Because you're not, as great as he is, you're not going to put him in there. I don't think you're going to replace Zach Werenski. He's not going to replace a guy like Quinn Hughes. But you're not calling him in here to just sit on the bench. This dude is legit, and he can absolutely fly. Is he as physical as a guy like Charlie McAvoy? No. But he's smart as hell with the puck, and he can motor. He is one of the fastest skaters in the entire league. And now that he's going to be in the lineup, I am jumping for joy because this kid can play. It's such a positive sign. And from all that we're hearing, and I know there was a lot of people worried about the Tkachuk brothers because we know that they are the straw that stirs the drink for this Stars and Stripes squad. After last night, listen, you tip your hat to Victor Hedman and the Swedes. They pick up the 2-1 victory. There's nothing I saw in that game last night that worried me about the style of play, about the U.S. being ready for Thursday night. It was a hard-fought, hard-nosed game. I like their defense. They gave up 2 goals there in the first period, and they shut it down the rest of the way. That's going to be the key number going into Thursday night. Look at how many goals that Team Canada has given up, and look at how many goals that U.S. has given up. John Cooper will tell you himself, it's not how many you score, it's how many you keep out. And I love the fact that even though the U.S. lost, they knew they had the game in hand, but they only gave up 2 goals. That was it. If they put forth that type of performance, I think they come out on top on Thursday night. I cannot wait for this game. It is going to be incredible. And how about Chris Kreider, who enters into the game because Matthew Tkachuk was held out with an upper body injury, had a tough year with the New York Rangers, but this is a kid that went to school up there, meant the world for him, meant the world to him to be able to be on this team and to play there in Boston. He scores 35 seconds into the game. This guy is a factor on the penalty kill. He's a factor on the power play. I truly believe that he will draw in on Thursday night. We're hearing that Charlie McAvoy's injury is the one that was concerning the most. I would assume that Matthew Tkachuk and Brady Tkachuk will both be in the lineup on Thursday night. And I think Chris Kreider draws in too. I think he draws in for Brock Nelson, who's been okay. But you look at their lines, I think that fourth line, the lines will shake out like this in some capacity, okay? We're going to look at, and we'll take a deep dive on Thursday, but there's going to be some semblance of a Tkachuk, and Eichel. It'll be some semblance of a, here, let me just pull them up just so I'm not speaking out of my ass here. Daily face-off. This is where I get my Team USA line combinations here. Okay, so it'll be something like this. You'll see Austin Matthews with Jack Hughes on one side and probably Jake Gensel on the other side, right? Then you'll see Jack Eichel with Brady Tkachuk and Matthew Tkachuk. Then on that third line, you'll see JT Miller alongside Kyle Connor and Matthew Boldy. And then I think that fourth line, it's going to be Vincent Trocheck with Dylan Larkin. And I think Chris Kreider will draw in for Brock Nelson. I truly believe that. And then you'll have Slavin and Faber. That'll be the same. Noah Hannafin and Adam Fox. And I think Zach Werenski and Quinn Hughes. You might have Quinn Hughes play with Adam Fox. Maybe Werenski will play with Hannafin. I don't know. But we know Connor Hellebuyck's going to go back between the pipes. Jake Ottinger, I thought, did a decent job last night. Nothing to really shake a stick at for him. And when it comes to Team Canada, you saw that Jarvis was out. Konechny went back in. I think Seth Jarvis will probably re-enter. It'll be interesting to see how John Cooper decides what his lines are going to look like after their much-needed win yesterday over Team Finland. Now, as of now, it's Connor McDavid, Braden Point, and Mark Stone. What a job by Coach Cooper putting Braden Point up there. For all the smack talk, again, I posted a video the other day about people bitching and moaning about the player selection. Yeah, okay. He put Braden Point, who was originally on his third line, up with Connor McDavid and Mark Stone, McKinnon, Crosby, and Reinhart. And then you have a line of Hagel, Sorelli, and Martyr. We know how much Cooper loves that line with Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand, and Travis Konechny. You now have people online saying, oh, I can't believe that Brad Marchand, the heart and soul of this team, is only playing 8 minutes a night. Hey, he's 36 years old. He's got, 40-something points in 57 games. He's a -7. He's not the same Brad Marchand. He's got no type of speed whatsoever at all. He's a pain in the ass, but look at the Boston Bruins. Just watch their team. They are not as fast as they once were. He's a hell of a player, don't get me wrong. But where are you going to play? I'm not playing him over Brandon Hagel or Anthony Sorelli. What are you, freaking nuts? No way. If the USA wins on Thursday night over Team Canada, it has nothing to do with what Canada didn't do. It has everything to do with what Team USA is, the type of team they are, the type of players that they have. They are a team. That's what Matthew Tkachuk said if you were listening to the broadcast last night during the game. He goes, our biggest strength is our bond, is our chemistry, is our togetherness. And it's not saying that Canada is not like that, but you can tell just watching Team USA by the way they play, even in the game yesterday where they lost, that is a tough team to play against. And it's not just tough to play against because they have a lot of guys with skill, a lot of guys with speed. You've heard this before. If you're a Lightning fan, you want to be tough to play against. That's why they went out and got Patrick Maroon over the years. That's why they got guys like Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow and Kevin Shattenkirk. You want to be tough to play against. And when you look at this Team USA squad, especially defensively, like ESPN wrote the article, Greg Wyshynski, like who is the MVP of this team? And yeah, you could say the Tkachuks, but Jacob Slavin, this dude for the Carolina Hurricanes, he just doesn't make mistakes. Whatever he does, he makes the right play every single time. He's quiet as hell. It's not about flash and dash, as I've said in the past. He is such a solid player. And then, you have Zach Werenski, who's probably going to win the Norris Trophy this year. I mean, think about that. You have, and we'll see who wins the MVP this year. We know it's a popularity contest because if it wasn't, then Nikita Kucherov would have won it last year, not Nathan McKinnon. But I don't know if there's a defenseman that's had a better year than Zach Werenski, American. There's certainly not a goalie that's had a better year than Connor Hellebuck, American. What more can you ask for? That's the type of play that is going to win you games like this and win a tournament like this. I cannot wait till Thursday night. It is going to be freaking nuts. You think it was jacked up on Saturday night? Now a championship's on the line. And don't tell me it's meaningless, right? Howie Rose, longtime guy with the Mets. I have a lot of respect for the guys that have come before me when it comes to broadcasting. But he tweeted something out today trying to compare what's going on with the Tkachuks and Charlie McAvoy with what happened with Edwin Diaz for Puerto Rico when he got banged up celebrating. And saying that, it sucks to see that in a meaningless game. I'm sorry, Howie. With all due respect, it's not meaningless. Not meaningless at all. These guys are going out there and representing their country. It means, you think Edwin Diaz regrets playing for his country? Not a chance. Of course you regret what happened. And yeah, it sucks if things like this happen. I mean, it happens in soccer when there's more international competitions than any sport. They do it in the middle of the season every single year. It's the nature of the beast. But to say that games like this are meaningless, you tell the Canadian players that it's meaningless. You go tell Matthew and Brady Tkachuk that it's meaningless. Not a freaking chance, bro. Not a chance. This game means, what about the guys that'll never play in the Stanley Cup final? Right? For Matthew Tkachuk, yeah, okay, he just won a cup last year, won games. What about his brother? His brother's never even made it to the playoffs. This is the biggest game that he's ever played in his entire life. You're telling me that's meaningless? Guys that have never made it to the Stanley Cup final, that may never make it to the Stanley Cup final. This may be the biggest game that they ever play in. What are you talking about meaningless? Just because we put so much of an onus of club over country here in the U.S., don't sit there and demean what this game means to the players that are involved. What a tone-deaf statement. Are you kidding me? Saturday night, I was at a party, and any other night, we'd be watching the NBA. The TV probably wouldn't even be on. But everybody was locked in to US and Canada. Everybody was freaking out. Go check social media. People that have never typed in the word hockey on their Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, were all enthralled by what that game was all about. It wasn't just the fights. That set the tone, but it was 60 minutes of guys leaving it all out there and playing for the crest on the front of their jersey and not the name on the back. We should probably have a little bit more of that when it comes to sports, when it comes to life. People giving more for something bigger than themselves. So to sit here and use an example of a freak accident, of a celebration, to demean what these guys are doing on the ice, not meaningless. Not a chance. And I want to shout out Renee. What's up, buddy? Good afternoon to you. Edwin, check this out, guys. Let's give it up for Edwin. Jay, hope you have a great day. Just had my baby. My lady did get, during the C-section, 7 pounds, 10 ounce, 19 inches at 9:02 a.m. Let's give it up for Edwin, everybody. Can we get a thumbs up? Can we give a shout out to Edwin? What's the baby's name? We want to know, Edwin. And speaking of babies, here's my baby brother. Hughes back to replace McAvoy. This is why you have to show up at 12 o'clock, little brother, who also just had a baby on Christmas. Again, huge. Quinn Hughes back to replace Charlie McAvoy on the blue line for Team USA. I love it. I love it. And let's hear right now. Here's what Mike Sullivan had to say. We'll bring it up for you guys. Let me pull it up because I want to hear this with you. I want to hear this with you. Let's hear what Coach has to say. It's going to be simple. It's going to be easy, but I'm going to freaking love it. Let's hear it together. Coach Mike Sullivan, who's coming to save the day on the blue line?
Given Trevor's situation, I have a two-part question. Is someone coming here or is someone already here?
Quinn Hughes is coming.
Okay, and second.
Yeah. Quinn Hughes is coming. You bet your sweet ass he's coming. Let's go. Oh, that's so awesome, man. I love this. And when Canada was down a defenseman, when Makar went down and Thomas Harley had I thought that's so cool. Listen, for all the rules that they have with this, come on. You got to be able to bring what's going on. Like, let's, okay. Real quick, this is Pierre LeBrun. According to NHL Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly, just like Harley in Canada, Quinn Hughes is not in unless someone else is definitely out due to injury or illness, can't practice with the team or play until that happens. Okay. So we'll see. Now, I don't know. McAvoy, Jake Sanderson. So we'll see. Because I don't know if people are saying that Jake Sanderson's about to get fed raw chicken tonight. If they have. All right, so people are saying that it could be an infection related to the upper body injury for Charlie McAvoy. Hopefully it isn't a staph infection, because if it's not him, it could be anybody. All right, so we're going to have to pump the brakes a little bit, all right? Which sucks about it is somebody else has to go out if he's going to draw in. So that means it'll probably be those 6 guys. Jake Sanderson. So I'm going to, damn it, I have to pump the brakes now. Now my better, I'm starting to kind of take this whole thing into consideration now. There's a really good chance now in my mind that Quinn Hughes doesn't play in this game because, like my brother said, believe they need someone to be out for him to be in. But I heard Sanderson got a hangnail. You're right. So breaking news is that Quinn Hughes is going to join the team in case somebody else gets banged up or somebody else has an infection like Charlie McAvoy. So you would need somebody like Fox or Werenski or Jacob Slavin or Brock Faber or Sanderson or Hannafin to not be able to go if Quinn Hughes is going to draw in for that game. So takes a little bit of the steam, a little bit of the luster away from Quinn Hughes being on his way. But with that being said, if somebody does go down, you're drawing in probably the best defenseman in the world right now. So I could see it both ways, right? I want Quinn to be in there, but I look at the way that the defense is played with a guy like Jacob Slavin and Zach Wierenski kind of anchoring the back line, I'm fine, even if Quinn Hughes doesn't get in the game. Shout out to Edwin. Aria Jade, what a beautiful name. And thank you, Jeff Taylor. Congrats to Edwin. Edwin again, little one, just born this morning, 9:02, 7 pounds, 10 ounces, 19 inches long, 9:02 a.m. Shout out to the Rodriguez family. Aria Jade, welcome to the world. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Again, tonight, USF and Florida State. I'll be on the call, so make sure you're following me at JRecher so I can let you know when you can hear me. It'll be a really good game. I can't wait to see what Coach Mitch Hanna's team is all about. Man, it's really, really good stuff. If you missed the interview from him yesterday, I like what he had to say about the game. This is a guy that's thinking ahead. He's thinking about raising young men instead of just baseball players. And I like that he's not a slave to analytics. He uses them. He understands the importance of them, but he's just not bogged down by them. And he coaches with his guts. And I coach with his gut. And I see on Saturday, I love that he said they got punched in the nose and they didn't respond. And that before the game on Sunday, that he hit them with some truths. I like that. He probably just flat out told them they weren't good enough. He didn't coddle them. He didn't say, oh, everything was going to be okay. Oh, poor baby. And if you saw the impassioned, did you see the stuff? Did you guys see the Rick Pitino video? Anybody? I mean, this dude, Rick Ucchino, longtime college basketball coach. This is the type of coach. I mean, this stood out to me so big the other day because he coaches St. John's, a team that I've been rooting for many, many years. Listen to what he said. We need more guys like this when we're talking about coaching our young athletes today.
Dig in and be a basketball player. Dig in. Every time you miss a shot, your game deflates. We don't care about your missed shots. Play defense. You guys keep blowing opportunity upon opportunity upon opportunity. You're like children with bad things happening. Instead of digging in and be tougher, you wilt. Where is your toughness? Where have you guys been raised that you're so weak mentally that you just give up when something doesn't go right for you? Don't you know what adversity is all about? That's the game of life, not the game of basketball. You don't get down when things go wrong. You dig in and get tougher. Your whole life's going to be adversity. Learn how to deal with it.
Pitino.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Rick Pitino, dig in. Life is all about adversity. Wow. Well said. And when you hear Mitch Hanna's talk, he seems to be a guy that's cut maybe not as fiery as Rick Pitino. I'm sure he gets fiery behind closed doors, but what a great series there on Vice about Rick Pitino coaching there at St. John's. And I think that's what we need in this world, man. We need coaches like that. We need parents like that to not just be coddling their kids all the time. Sometimes they need a swift kick in the ass. They need encouragement to like not give in and not give up and not be a quitter. Times are hard. Life is hard. It doesn't always get easier when you get older. You get faced with different problems, different adversities. And baseball is such a great example of that because it is a game of failure. I mentioned this to Coach Hannes yesterday. Baseball is such a unique sport that you can fail 7 out of 10 times and still be considered one of the greatest of all time and be a Hall of Famer. It's not for everybody. I know friends of mine that I grew up with, and they played other sports, and they were used to being successful. They were used to having 10 to 15 tackles a game. They were used to getting, rushing for 100 yards or catching 7 or 8 passes or, scoring 30 points on the basketball court. They weren't used to going 1 for 4. They couldn't mentally rationalize it. I'm supposed to be okay with failing? No, you're not supposed to be okay with it. But you're supposed to let it drive you to do better going forward. You're not supposed to let it cripple you and make you crumble. There has to be patience. You got to focus on the process and not always the result. And that's not just for baseball. I think it's pretty much for any other sport and for life. And when you speak of, I think, the sport more than any that is focused more on the process than the result, think it's soccer. And when we talk soccer on this program, one of the guys we talk it with is our good pal, Jeff Attinella. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Yo, what's going on, Jay?
Thanks so much for joining me, buddy. Speak on that, brother, because soccer is one of those sports, and that's why when I chat with people about the sport that are trying to learn it, they're trying to love it, I tell them don't watch it through the scope of football. Watch it through the scope of baseball because it's a little bit more of a slower pace. You have to be encouraged about the buildup. You got to be patient. You got to realize that it's so process driven and process oriented and not results driven. And when people do that, I think they learn to appreciate the game at the very least. But soccer is a game where, man, it's not for you're looking for instant gratification. You're probably barking up the wrong tree.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that with soccer, you compare it more to a chess game, right? So, like, if you're talking about soccer, it's more about chess. It's that methodical process. It's, okay, can I move the ball from side to side to slowly get that defense to open up? And then once I have that opportunity to attack, like in chess, right? If you see an opportunity to attack and get that queen, you're like, all right, now it's time to go. And with football, it's more like checkers, where it's like, I'm going to jump you, I'm coming straight at you, and we're just going to clash the entire game, right? So I think that's a pretty good comparison. But it's funny, like you're watching that. I was watching that clip of Rick Ucchino earlier, and I was just watching it now. And I'm trying to think, how can I apply that to my daughter's 8-year-old softball team that I'm coaching? And so I think I got to be a little bit more delicate, but it's kind of those same priorities that we're trying to instill in those kids,
That's right. Just no F-bombs, because I don't know how your wife will feel about that when all these girls start running out of the dugout saying that Coach Jeff cussed at me. So what do you got going on? So you're coaching. I know you're doing stuff with keepers as well. I saw the video the other day. Let everybody know what you got going on, man.
Yeah, man. So I'm working hard. We're trying to build out, one of my goals when I moved down here was to start a goalkeeper academy. I think that it's something that for me, it's one way to give back to the soccer community as a whole, just because I've experienced so much, and there's just been so many different things throughout my life that I've learned, whether it's through, I ended up getting my US license scouting license. I wasn't really ever planning on that, but it was an opportunity that kind of fell into my lap. And then, just the different connections and the different people that I've met along the way. So that's something I'm trying to do here, is really try to really focus in on providing an outlet for the goalkeepers that like to play the game of soccer, because I think that that's one of the areas when you're talking about the sport, there's so many people that now have a better idea of what it's like to play the game, but there's not a lot of people that have an idea of what it's like to be a goalkeeper, because it's so specific and unique. So that's something I'm working on down here. That's a Tampa Bay Goalkeeper Academy, if that's of interest for anybody down here. And then just a couple different things in the soccer community that I've been working on. There's a company called Keeper Wars that they're gonna try to do some stuff down here in Tampa, where Keeper Wars is essentially, it's a pretty fun game where you line up 2 goalkeepers, 2 goals straight across from each other about 25 yards out, and just kind of let them go back and forth. And it's a little bit of a battle for about 12 minutes. So that's a company that's trying to do something down here that I'm getting involved with as well. And of course, football season just ended here at Smack, so things are finally calming down. Things are finally calming down here a little bit, so we can regroup here at Smack and get ready for next year and gear up a little bit for baseball. So a little bit of everything. And, I'm trying to do a little bit more content as well on my own channels for just sports talk and things like that. So just having fun with all the things I'm doing, really.
Make sure you check out Smack Apparel, some of the greatest t-shirts around, talking smack in a fun way to really stick it to your biggest rivals. What is kind of this time of year for you guys now? Like, what other sports do you really get on? Because I know football is such a big thing for you, whether it's NFL or college.
Yeah, football is definitely the driver, but now it's a little bit more of a shift to baseball. And, the beginning of baseball, everybody's really fired up for baseball. So there's a little bit of a window here where there's a couple months where, baseball, we lean into baseball designs and try to think of new designs or anything that might have happened in the off season. But then when you get to those summer months where it's like everyone's been watching baseball only for, we're on games like 100 where everyone's like, all right, let's get to the All-Star break and start getting where it's serious again. That's where things kind of slow down for us. But so we're going to try to tap into college basketball once college basketball starts heating up, and really just anything that pops off in the sports world, we're going to try to be on top of. And we've actually dropped a couple more Man United designs that we're going to be trying to tap into soccer a little bit more, because there's such a fan base here in America for European football. So really just trying to keep our eyes open to different things that happen in sports. And really this is just a time for us to think around new ideas, things that we could do differently as a business. And of course, one of the things I'm really driving into with Smack is just the different content and trying to make it a real fan-centric hub for sports fans that want to have a little fun, maybe talk some smack on our channels, and not let it get a little bit over the top. So that's really what we're doing down here.
Yeah, you should probably get a Man United shirt that says, "Oh no, we suck again," because we stink, man. We stink. But hopefully we
It's
can win
it's,
the
it's
Euro.
not good. It's not good soccer in Manchester right now. Manchester as a
Killing me,
whole is
bro.
suffering.
It's killing me, man. Even
It's
City's not
suffering.
playing good, so Manchester fans are not too happy about anything going on. Big soccer match last Friday night at Raymond James Stadium, Inter Miami, Orlando City. What was that experience like for you and your family? I know your daughter got a chance to be an escort. I mean, what's the word to take? Because in Europe they say mascots, and I'm like, that's so demeaning for the kids. So just what do they call them here in the States?
Yeah, it was escort. They went with escort,
Escort?
which is nice. That's a proper title. They did a
I mean,
good
I
job.
guess. I mean, we live in Tampa, so I mean, I don't know if escorts is necessarily the
Oh
best.
no, don't say that.
Okay,
She's
okay.
only 8. She's
I
only
know
8.
that's what I'm saying, bro. I'm trying to look out. Like, I don't know if this. I don't think. Can we just get a better word like star of the game or kid of the game, star
Kid
kid?
walkers or something like
That's
that.
not good either.
No.
We gotta come up with a name that is just one. There's no double entendre. There's nothing. There's got to be one name. We should come up with that, bro. We'd be millionaires. But how was that experience?
Yeah,
We'll
trademark that title so that anyone uses it, then we have it
They
down.
got to pay Jay and Jeff. You got that, buddy. But before your experience, what was her experience like being able to walk on the field with the team?
It was cool, man. I mean, you know how it is, dude. The Tampa Bay Sports Commission, Rob Higgins, they are just all class all the time.
He's the best.
And he had reached out about, I know a lot of soccer people in this community. So he had reached out about me connecting him with a soccer group down here that I think could have done some good with the game and with the event, because it was such a big deal that, of course Messi's coming and that's just such a massive deal. But for me, it was cool for me to see an MLS game at Raymond James Stadium. I mean, I hadn't seen that since the Tampa Bay Mutiny. And it was always kind of one of my pipe dreams to try to find a way to get onto the Raymond James field and play a soccer game. And I didn't ever see, it didn't happen during my time playing, but for them to be able to bring MLS to the community was awesome. And, obviously it had Messi and it had all the big superstars, which is a big driving factor of it. But it was just cool for me to see that, because I didn't think it was something that would ever be possible for quite some time. But Rob had reached out about connecting them, and he just kind of threw out there in the message like, oh, and hey, by the way, if one of your, I don't know how old your kids are yet, but if you have one that's over 7, we're short one kid to walk on the field if you think anybody would be interested. And, of course, like, I didn't ask. I was just like, oh yeah, my daughter, she's in, no doubt. Like, sign her up. We'd love to do it. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And it was cool, man. It was a cool dad moment for me because, she's 8 years old, right? And like, you're watching this kid grow up, and they still feel, I think parents always feel like your kids are really young, no matter how old they are. But I'm watching and it's like, all right, we take her down to the tunnel and they're walking in where the players walk in, and they're like, all right, we're gonna need your kid here at 5:30. Game starts at 7:30. Walkout would be around 7:25 or so, and we're just gonna take your kid and we pick them up afterwards. So it's like, so, I'm there with Kendall, my wife, and our 4-year-old Connor, and Remy's just like, you could tell she was a little bit nervous, but she didn't know anybody, and she just walked back under the tunnel. And then the next time we see her, she's walking out on the field, and she was with one of the Orlando players, but she was with the player that was right after the goalie. So it was like 3 players away from Messi. So we're watching, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, he's like she could like reach out and touch him if she really wanted to. And like, I'm watching her and she's just like watching him, but like holding the guy's hand, but walking the whole time. And then they did the lineup, they did the anthem, and then just watching her sprint off the field, because they always send the kids. They're always like, I remember when I was playing, there's somebody that's always there. It's like, all right, now come. Yeah. So watching the person organize that and watching my daughter sprint off the field and going to pick her up, and she was all fired up. So for me, it was really cool because, I never got the chance to do that with her when I was playing, because she was always a little bit too young. And then when she was old enough, there was COVID, so they weren't doing the player escort. So I never got the opportunity to do that. So to see her do that, one, I never thought she'd get the chance to do that on an MLS field, but then to do it with, some of the world's best players walking right next to her it was really cool.
What about your experience watching the game and seeing Messi playing there at Raymond James Stadium?
Yeah, it was cool, man. Honestly, that was the second MLS game that I've been to since I retired. I went to the stadium opener in Nashville. It was a little bit mixed emotions, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah, because I'm watching and I'm thinking in my head, everybody thinks, I think no matter how old you get, you think in your head that you can still be out there.
Yeah.
And so to watch it going down on Raymond James Stadium and to be watching from the seats, that was a little bit tough, if I'm being completely honest, because I was like, man, I'd do anything to be out there in front of the hometown crowd and be a part of this game. But it was just an unforgettable experience in terms of like how many times you get to watch somebody that is truly the best at their craft. And, you know, for me, I've done it twice in my life, and they've both been at Raymond James Stadium. It's been Tom Brady and it's been Messi. And to watch him play, and, you know, just the way that he was able to captivate the entire audience, like little kids, man, like chanting Messi, 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 little kids all across the stadium chanting his name. I just never thought I'd see something like that in soccer. And it was a little bit surreal, but also a little bit bittersweet. And it was just a whole bag of emotions, man. It was funny. Kendall reached out and like, she's like, how you doing over there? And I'm like, I don't know how I'm doing right now. I'm a little bit all over the place, but I'm glad my kids are having fun.
Yeah, that's true. You got a great wife, buddy. You got a great wife. She
Thank
definitely
you. Yeah.
understands. She understands like the whole thing with the emotions. And, you know,
She understands my crazy. She understands my crazy.
She is, man. And speaking of crazy, it's Florida State against USF baseball today at 5:00. I mean, is that going to cause anybody to sleep on the couch tonight or what?
Nah. There's you know, if it was football, that's her. Football is Kendall's saying, man. If it has to do with football, then it's like no love lost at all between the two schools. But, you know, I think that it's two programs that we both kind of just root for them for one another. Right. And, you know, if USF wins, I'll definitely talk a lot of smack. And if Florida State wins, I won't even tell her that Florida State beat USF in anything.
Yeah, that's right. Ignorance is bliss at times. You got that right, buddy. Did you watch any of the hockey, the Four Nations stuff?
Yeah, dude, I love it. So
Amazing.
I've been tuned out. I haven't been checked into hockey as much as I normally have been, just with so much going on. And you know, you don't get as much TV control when you have kids in the house.
Right.
But that got me back into it, honestly. Like, I'm fired up for Thursday. I think Thursday is going to be electric. Can't wait to watch it. And dude, now I'm like watching the Lightning guys being the guys that are leading the scraps. I'm like, oh, we got it. All right, I'm back in. You know, I got my hat on now. I'm like, all right, we're back into this. I got to get back into it a little bit. But no, dude, it was cool, man. I think they've done a really good job of figuring out how to make these little breaks fun. Right? Like, I think soccer's always done a good job with it because they have that international window. And then when you get countries playing against each other, people are into it, no matter, you know what I mean? No matter who you cheer for, if you're rooting for your country, you're going to get into it. And I think the NHL and hockey's done a tremendous job. And I can't wait for Thursday. I'm like fired up. It's like the driving force of what I'm looking forward to this week.
I know. I mean, our guys from the We the Thunder podcast are like, oh, I'm going to be at the Dignitary Tea and Kava House Thursday. So I'm like, I might have to go over there, and we might have to like bring a bunch of people. So if you're looking for a place to watch the game, hit me up. We'll definitely. That's a T-shirt, bro. If USA wins, that's your Smack Apparel T-shirt.
100%. We own hockey or something like that.
Yes, man. Something with the Kachucks on there. Like the Kachuk brothers, or the new Bass brothers. Brady and
I saw a bunch of memes and gifs about that, and it was just like, this is actually so fitting.
Bro, I'm telling you, if the US wins, bro, there you go. You're looking for something to do during the downtime. Yeah, that's the way to go.
That'd be a good one. That'd be a good one. No, it's been fun though. I mean, I just think that like figuring out a way to keep the sport exciting when there's downtime is crucial for all these sports. And in this fashion, I think it actually might help the NHL gain a little bit momentum, because now you're watching these guys and it's like, all right, I'm cheering for USA. All right. Oh, who does that guy play for? I like that guy. I want to watch his game play. And I think that's been a bit. Can't talk right now. Been a good thing for hockey.
No, for sure. And then, you know, I'm always been a big NBA guy, and it just like looking at their All-Star weekend compared to what we just saw for hockey, it's not even the same, right? Dunk competition and the games, the guys aren't really trying, and then you have 3 fights in 9 seconds in hockey, and people don't get it too. And I was just saying this before, Jeff, before you got on. You know, somebody was talking about, oh, like these are meaningless games. And you know as well as I do, when these guys are playing for their country, for hockey, it's probably the closest sport to soccer, where soccer, the international breaks are built in to the regular season schedule every single year. And as much as they do get paid millions of dollars and love playing for their club, I mean, the pride that comes for playing for their country, it's incomparable.
Dude, don't even get me started on the NBA. What the NBA is doing right now in that weekend, I thought that was such a disaster for the NBA. I mean, nothing good came of that at all. If anything, it was like more negative than positive. But that's what you got to love about hockey, man. Like, there's certain sports, right, where if you don't bring it, you're going to get run over, or like, you just better come correct, because you know that the people across the line are going to come and they're going to play seriously. Whereas in basketball, it's like, you watch one of these all-star teams, they don't even try. And if the other team's trying really hard, it's just a waste of everybody's time. But I think that they did a great job of setting the tempo. Obviously, I know that like booing the national anthem right now is a big thing, and I'm sure it's politically driven. But if you take the politics out of it, I mean, if I was standing there playing MLS and when we played these Canadian teams and they booed the national anthem, I'd be like, all right, let's go. Let's go. Let's have a little bit of pride behind this and like really get fired up about it. So I thought the players did a good job of handling it the right way. Obviously, when you start the game with 3 fights, it's just like, oh, this is gonna be epic. And now the next one's in Boston, so you know that they're gonna get it on the other side too. So I'm fired up, man. I think it's gonna be really cool.
Hell yeah, man. I cannot wait. Jeff Attinella, go check him out. Smack Apparel, Jeff_Attinella1. Follow him wherever he's at. Hope to see you around at some Rowdies. We gotta go to a Rowdies game together this season.
Yeah, let's do it, bro. We'll get some good content too, man. There's a lot of good stuff going on with the Rowdies, and I know that you're a big soccer guy in this community, and a lot of the stuff that I'm tapping into this year is about trying to drive soccer and get it going in this community. And I think the Miami-Orlando game is a good jump-off point. So anytime you want to do anything, brother, I'm here for you.
We're collabing big time. Go check him out. Go check out Smack Apparel. Check out the USA shirt they're going to come up with after the win on Thursday night. Give Kendall and the kids my love, my brother. I appreciate your time, and have a great rest of your week. Talk soon, pal.
Absolutely, man. Keep grinding, brother.
Thanks, buddy. The one and only Jeff Attinella. So proud of him. Local guy, USF Hall of Famer, MLS standout, and just an all-around great guy. He's one of those people, man. We talk about salt of the earth. We talk about great people. And I said this from day one. It's not about the games. It's not about the players. It's about the people that you work alongside. And Jeff Attinella has become just one of the people that I thoroughly enjoy even reaching out to try to get him on the show, his entire family. Like, it's just great people. And again, support local. We talk about that a lot here on the program. Support local. The local business of Smack Apparel, headquartered right here in Tampa, Florida. These shirts are amazing. If you've never gotten a Smack Apparel shirt before, just go to smackapparel.com. Not right now, not during the show. Wait until after I'm done. Smackapparel.com. Go look through the shirts. At the very least, you may not want to buy one, but you probably know somebody that does want to buy one. So go back, smackapparel.com, go check it, screenshot them, send them to your friends, buy a couple new ones, and then go from there. I have just a little shelf, like a little drawer for all my Smack Apparel t-shirts because they are so badass. I've donated so many different clothes to Goodwill over the years and the Salvation Army, but I can't get rid of my Smack Apparel shirts. I just keep them all. There's like a rainbow of shirts in my drawer. It's amazing. So yes, support logo, smackapparel.com. My guy Jeff Attinella. We love them all. Let's get it in here. Jeff, you're the man. Thank you so much. Let's get to some of your comments here. Father Football Gaming. How about Harrigan Quinn Hughes showing up for Thursday? Greg Wyshynski from ESPN just said they should Jake Sanderson should probably hire a food taster so he doesn't get food poisoning. I don't know if Quinn Hughes is going to play on Thursday unless one of the defensemen can't play. He's probably not going to go in. He's going to be on standby. Dave Velasquez, hockey's giving the people what they want. LFG, you got that right. Shiver Timber, shout out J Gang. What's up? Bart Hill, my guy. Nikita loafed so the four nations could live. Very, very good. What up, Christopher Cole and Lady Evil? Appreciate you guys very, very much. Yeah, cannot wait for all of that. And I know there's people bitching and moaning and complaining about all this stuff when it comes to the roster construction. If you missed what I had to say yesterday about Team Canada and their complaints, I just want to play it again for you right here, because it just bothers me that a team that has so much talent is bitching and moaning about roster construction and all that jazz. If you missed it, here's what I had to say yesterday on the program. I don't want to hear a damn thing from Canadians complaining about picking the wrong roster. You've got Julien Brisebois and John Cooper working with some of the brightest minds in the world for Team Canada. This isn't about player selection. This is a story about Team USA and how they've caught up to Canada. That U.S. developmental program has worked wonders. There's also a grit and an edge that the Americans' top players have. I mean, it says a lot. Nobody's talking about this, but it says a lot that the Kachucks, Matthew and Brady, were the ones scrapping up there with two bottom six forwards from Canada. Two top six guys for the U.S., two bottom six guys for Canada. And that's not taking anything away from Sam Bennett and a guy that I freaking love for the Tampa Bay Lightning, Brandon Hagel. But you have Matthew and Brady dropping the gloves against guys that weren't Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, or Mitch Marner. Big time hockey games, they're not won with flash and dash. You have to go to the dirty areas. You got to play tough physical hockey to come out on top. You need contributions from everyone. Look at the red, white, and blue. Matthew Boldy scoring goals. Dylan Larkin scoring goals. Charlie McAvoy laying people out with his physical play. It's not the best players that win in hockey. It's the best team. I don't care who you brought out of the stands to play for Canada, whether he was a current player or a former player. They weren't beating the United States on Saturday night. You know, for years, people were saying that Canada's B team was the second best team in the world. Well, now people are complaining that guys like Logan Thompson aren't in goal and Habs captain Nick Suzuki isn't playing for Team Canada. It's kind of crazy how the tables have turned. So there you have it. As spoken yesterday on the program, and to all those people out there that are still bitching and moaning about that, I mean, Jesus, you still have all these great players on the team. Imagine complaining about what your roster looks like when you have Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon on your team. Think about that. You have arguably the two best players in the world, and you're complaining about who's playing and who's on the team and who's not. How about your own players step up? How about those bottom six guys step up and score some goals? Because that, to me, is what's going to happen once again. When you look at the game yesterday, I mean, go back. I mean, Chris Kreider is a guy that was a late ad. He's the guy that scored the goal yesterday for Team USA, right? When you look back at yesterday's game, pull it up right here. Look who scored for Canada. Sidney Crosby, top six guy. Nathan McKinnon got 2, top six guy. Connor McDavid scored a goal, and Braden Point scored a goal. All 5 goals from your top 6 guys. Sam Bennett, nothing, no points. Cirelli, no points. Konechny, no points. Marchand, no points. Marner bumped down, no points. You only got 1 assist from a defenseman, and that was Travis Sanheim out of everybody. When you look at this team, Team Canada, I don't know what they could have done to construct a roster that they could still win this tournament. But just looking at how they're playing, they gave up. Look at how many goals that they've given up. They gave up 3 yesterday in the third period as Finland battled back 4-0 down to make it 4-3. Right? And then you go farther back. You look at these games and you look at, all right, well, we know how many they gave up to Team USA. You know they went into overtime in game 1 against Sweden. This isn't a team that is focused so much on keeping the puck out of the net. They're trying to outscore you. We know that doesn't work in high-level competition, whether it's a tournament like this or whether it's the Stanley Cup playoffs. And some people say, oh, well, the U.S. won here. It'll be different at home. Canada knows. But I don't think so. I look at the way that Team USA is built. That is the way good teams are built. You have your stars. You have your middle 6 guys. You have your grinders. You have good, solid defense and a good goaltender. I think the U.S. is deeper. I think their decor is better. And I think their netminder is better. The only thing they really don't have is the top-end talent. And you still have guys like Austin Matthews and Jack Hughes. And I think there's a lot more players that the USA can throw at those top 6 guys to try to thwart whatever they got going on there rather than the other way around. Guys just not showing up. Mitch Marner, I know we scored the game winner in game 1, but you see this at the end of the year when Toronto's playing. Guy just disappears. He's like plays on the periphery, and you see it with Austin Matthews too. I saw something yesterday talking about the 2 Maple Leaf players and how they're not the kind of guys to drag their team into the fight. And that's one thing that you could say about the Tkachuk brothers is that whether it's Brady or whether it's Matthew, if you're not going well, they will literally drag your ass into the fight and say, hell to the no, we are not going down like that. Not happening. And you heard Matthew on the broadcast last night. He was a little surprised that he wasn't playing with Brady right away. I like that. I like that they didn't play together right away because then when you put them together, it becomes something. I hope they do the same exact thing. I hope that when the game starts, I hope that they start because Gensel, I think it's tough though, because I really like Gensel with Matthews and Jack Hughes. We'll see. We'll see. That's why Mike Sullivan gets paid the big bucks. Stanley Cup winner of his own, too. And let's not forget that. People talk so much about John Cooper. You're not going to get a guy that loves Coop more than me. But Mike Sullivan's a badass coach on the other side, too. He knows what it takes to win. He's coached Sidney Crosby. He's coached these Pittsburgh Penguins teams. So he knows what it takes to get to the top of the mountain. He's no slouch behind the U.S. bench either. David Velasquez, is it scary that Jake is the only Lightning playing scoring out of the 5 guys? Well, we did see Braden Point score in the game yesterday, and you needed to do that. He's kind of the key, because you're going to key on everybody else, McDavid, McKinnon. It's not hard to find those guys. But when you look at a guy like Braden Point, somehow, some way, he still flies under the radar. And that's the one guy that I look at if I'm the U.S. and I go, we can't let Braden Point sneak behind us. He's got a little bit more of a sneaky speed. You know what Connor McDavid is all about. He's the fastest skater in the world. He's a big dude. He's incredible. Nathan McKinnon, like a bull in a china shop. You could see he's like click, clack, click, clack. Like, what? I mean, there's no quiet. There's no sneaking up on anybody when you're Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon. But Braden Point is one of those guys. What do you get from a guy like from Sidney Crosby? Does anybody else step up? I don't know. And we're going to break down this game tomorrow. Eric Erlindson's going to join us at 1 o'clock. Ed Encina at 1:30. I have more people joining us on the program these next couple of days to break down the 4 nations. And it is pretty wild to think that this tournament has taken the entire continent by storm. Now, does this mean that hockey is more popular than the other 3 major sports? No. But these are the kind of seeds that get planted in people's heads that grow the game. You're always looking for things to grow the game. You never want, I said this yesterday, never want to give people a reason to get off the highway, right? In sports, it's not something where it's instantly. It's not instant. It's a long-term effect. And we saw it in baseball. When the strike happened in 94, it did damage to the game where people never went back. Now, they got some of those people back in 98, 99, and 2000, the early 2000s, when the home runs started, flying out of the ballpark, when McGuire was doing his thing with Sammy Sosa, when Barry Bonds was chasing and breaking records. They got some people back, but I know there are still people that in 94, they got so turned off by the game, and you probably didn't feel that for 2 decades. And now you look back on that and you wonder, why isn't the sport growing? Well, those people that got pissed off, they had kids. And the kids are the people that grow the game. So when you get to a point when you look at hockey and you look at the kids that are playing the game, I had somebody hit me up yesterday, a person that I used to work at iHeart with, and she goes, my son has really fallen in love with the game of hockey. Dad's not into it, nothing, but just watching the games, watching the 4 nations, watching the games last night. In her mind, she said, I just wanted to text you because I was thinking about the game, and my husband and my son, they're all about it now. That's what you have to do. Now, you won't feel that ramification in 2 years, in 5 years, but in 10, 15, and 20 years, yeah, that's going to help. And there's also the flip side. I wouldn't be surprised if in 10, 15 years, we're saying the opposite about the NBA because of the product, because of the ratings going down, because of all the isolation and the one-on-one and things like that. That sucks for me because I like the NBA. Well, it's not going to affect me in any way because I'm still going to watch regardless. But overall product, the entire thing, it leaves a lot to be desired. And again, it's not just the fights in the beginning of the game. It's what those fights represented. It is one of those things when you look at it and you go, that could be a seminal moment in where the game really took off. And if they can build on this, watch out. It's going to be tough to go back to an all-star game type festivities because from then it's just a celebration of the game. But now every 2 years, having the World Cup of Hockey and having the Olympics, that's going to be big for hockey. Because people are going to look at that and they're going to know it means something. When they play in the Olympics, you look at a team like Sweden. After the game last night, Erik Karlsson, after the Swedes get knocked out, saying, we'll be better in a couple of years. That's good. That means people are going to be looking forward to it. The Olympics are going to be a little different because there's going to be other sports going on. So as far as the attraction goes, it'll be a little different. I don't know if they'll have that standalone type of magnetism or attention as the Four Nations does, because it's just the Four Nations. It's not oversaturation. It's 2 games a day, maybe one every other day. It's different. And that's why I think a lot of people have grown to really like what they've seen. Christopher Cole Expos got screwed in 1994. I don't disagree with that at all. When you look at that 94 year, we were on a crash course for the Montreal Expos and the New York Yankees in the World Series. And I truly believe if that was the World Series, that it would have saved baseball in the city of Montreal. Because if they were able to get to the World Series and the fans were able to get that kind of boost to play the New York Yankees, the most popular team in the sport, I really think it would have gave them that kind of notch back up in the 3rd or 4th gear that could have saved baseball in that city. But instead, the lockout turned people off. They were left to wonder what if, and then before you knew it, they were relocating to the nation's capital, and now they're the Washington Nationals. Jeff Taylor, no hockey tonight, no baseball yet, not an NBA fan. Jay, help what to watch. Jeff, tonight, locked in, USF, Florida State, baseball. You can watch it on ESPN Plus. You can listen on the South Florida Bulls radio network because I will be on the call there for that game between the Seminoles and the Bulls. That's going to be a good one tonight. A top 10 team in the country with Florida State coming here to Tampa to take on USF. Jeff Taylor, you asked me what to watch. That is going to be, or you could watch NXT as well. I'm a wrestling guy, so there's always wrestling on TV every night of the week. You want Monday Night Raw? Fine. NXT? You want Dynamite? Thursday, you want to watch, maybe a little TNA action, and then Friday SmackDown? There you go, buddy. You'll find a way. You can find a way to consume some good stuff. There you go, Jeff. My Knowles, I'm in. Can't wait to listen. Much appreciated. Have a good call. Appreciate you very much. And I appreciate my next guest. Haven't talked to him in a while. He's here with us. The takedown on SI, Rick Ucchino in the house.
What up?
What's up, brother?
What's going on, man? Been a while since we've talked. I think it was WrestleMania 37 last time we actually had like a conversation with one another, like other than through DM on X. How's it going?
Oh, doing well, pal. Doing well. Thank you so much for making some time. People just asking me what's on tonight. I'm like, hey, man, there's always wrestling on. So, I mean, you can never turn that down when you have Monday Night Raw, you have NXT, you have Dynamite, you have TNA, you have SmackDown. I like how they've worked together to make sure that they don't mash it up, because there was an issue with AEW and NXT for a while, but just, let cooler heads prevail. Let's give everybody a chance to have their product on each night. We'll get into the wrestling talk in a little bit. I wanted to have you on today to talk some Bengals to start, because T. Higgins is obviously a big topic of conversation, whether he's going to remain with Cincinnati. I got friends in New England like, oh, he's coming here. Other parts of the country like, oh, yeah, T. Higgins, come here, be our one. But it seems like Cincinnati's looking at this going, bro, we need as many good players as we can get to try to overtake all of these teams in front of us there in the AFC to try to beat a guy like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Take us through this situation, and do you think they'll come to a deal, whether it's through the tag or not, to get T. Higgins back there with the Bengals?
Yeah, I think there's 31 other teams out there and fan bases of 31 other teams who are very upset by yesterday's news broken by my buddy James Rapine for Sports Illustrated, Cincinnati Bengals talk under the SI umbrella. The Bengals are going to tag T. Higgins, according to James Rapine, unless they don't get a deal done before the deadline, right? So I think they have until March 4th to place the franchise tag on him. So they are going to work over the next few weeks to try to get a long-term contract extension done with him. If it doesn't get done by March 4th, they will tag him. So they have until July to get that deal done, because the last thing they want is T. Higgins to hit the open market. The last thing Joe Burrow wants is for him to hit the free agent market, because if they do that, he's gone. He is by far the best free agent, or soon to be free agent, available in this year's class. So He's going to have a lot of wide receiver needy teams like New England, teams like Washington, who are going to be bidding top dollar, maybe beyond what he might be worth, maybe beyond what the Bengals might be willing to pay. But the bottom line comes down to the fact that T. Higgins wants to be in Cincinnati. I know that's difficult for some people to understand or hear, but he wants to be here. And that was put in motion when he changed agents in the middle of this past season. David Mulugeta was his former agent, has never completed a second contract with the Cincinnati Bengals. That is not a good working relationship. Same agent that Jesse Bates has. And we all know how the Jesse Bates saga ended. He's now playing all-pro ball in Atlanta instead of here in the Queen City. So T. Higgins changed agents, went with Jamar Chase's agent, and all of a sudden we start hearing Joe Burrow be very vocal about, well, T's a need. I expect him to be back. I want him back. Putting a lot of pressure on the front office, but also a lot of pressure on the players to say, yeah, let's figure out how to get this done. How to pay T. Higgins, how to extend Jamar Chase, how to extend Trey Hendrickson. $5 million over how many ever years are left on that deal. And honestly, it shouldn't be that hard. Jay, it really shouldn't be that hard because they aren't paying anybody else. They don't have a whole lot of money invested in a lot of their players right now, outside of Orlando Brown Jr. So they should be able to extend all three of those guys this offseason, especially with all three guys wanting to be here and wanting to keep the band together because, you know, like there is potential for this team to turn it around quickly if they are able to keep all of those guys and then use some of their other money, which they would still have left over, to plug some other holes. And hopefully they draft a little bit better as well. That's the plan heading into this offseason.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Trey Hendrickson because the Bucks definitely need an outside pass rusher. They need a guy, and people have been talking about Myles Garrett and Max Crosby, and Trey Hendrickson is another guy that people have been asking about, you know, all right, well, what's his future going to look like? We saw him down here with New Orleans, and all he did was go to Cincinnati and just continue to do great with no sleeves, and it just he stands out. He's just an incredible football player, man. I mean, is there a chance that he gets moved? My Bucks fans want to know, is there any chance Trey Hendrickson is not playing for Cincinnati next season?
I would say yes, and these are sentiments that I'm going to echo again from my buddy James Rapine for Cincinnati Bengals Talk. It all depends on what Trey wants, because if Trey Hendrickson, who yes just did lead the league in sacks, first Bengals player ever to be the sack king for a season, he does a lot well. But he is not quite the disruptor, a player of the caliber of a TJ Watt, of a Myles Garrett. If he is going to want their kind of dollar, top end, defensive end dollar, I don't know if the Bengals are going to pay somewhere in the $30 million range a year for Trey Hendrickson, especially with him now being on the wrong side of 30, which is something they're very much the Leonardo DiCaprio of the NFL. Like once you hit a certain age, it's like cutoff point, except for very few exceptions, right? So, but Trey is one of those exceptions. So if he can work it out with the team where he's getting somewhere in the 27, 24, 25, 26, 27 range, maybe a little bit higher. Yeah, I think they'll jump at that and they'll do that. If he wants to go above 30, that's where things might tend to get a little bit dicey. But I would not surprise me to see him get, because he still has 1 year left on his deal, right? So maybe 2 years front end with a huge signing bonus because he has earned a raise and the front office wants to give him that. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a 2-year contract extension somewhere. But there is definitely a chance. It just all depends on how much money he wants.
So what else do the Bengals need to do, Rick? Because you look at this team and they're looking around and looking at Kansas City, looking at Buffalo, who people thought, oh man, no Diggs. There are all these injuries on defense. And then they go all the way to the champion. They go and make their move to try to, beat Kansas City. Unfortunately for them, they lost in the championship game. Obviously, we got Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Who knows who else is going to pop up next year? I mean, we're getting farther and farther away. I love Joe Burrow. I love the way he plays. But we're getting farther and farther away from that Super Bowl appearance from a couple of years ago. What are the biggest holes that they do have to fill if they want to get back to be amongst the elite there in the conference and try to make another deep run in the postseason?
Look, the Eagles gave you the blueprint, right? Because they're paying their stars, they're paying their quarterback, their top 2 receivers. Oh yeah, they have Saquon Barkley under contract as well, and yet they can still block and they can get after the pass rusher, right? So in the trenches, that's where the Bengals lost a lot of their games this year, and it starts at the guard position. Honestly, on offensive line, Alex Kappa, who's a guy that they the year after they went to the Super Bowl, right, with that god awful offensive line, the first literal second of legal tampering. Adam Schefter's like, boom, 4 years, $64 million. Alex Kappa, somebody you're very familiar with. Come on up I-75. You're in Cincinnati. Unfortunately, whether it's due to injuries or age or whatever, his play has fallen off drastically. The Bengals got beat a lot inside, and it was either Cordell Volson's fault or Cody Ford's fault or Alex Kappa's fault. They're good with Ted Karras at center. Obviously, Orlando Brown Jr., left tackle, they're paying him a lot of money. He did have some injury problems this year, which is unlike him. And they really like Amarius Mims, the big right tackle they got out of Georgia. So they're good on the edges. They're good in the middle. They have to find some value at guard. They have to find some free agents at guard who can be serviceable. Because if they're serviceable, Joe Burrow's going to pick them apart. Chase Brown's going to pick you guys apart. They're going to put up 30 points a game, especially if they keep Chase and Higgins. But they got to find a way to apply more pressure on the quarterback, because outside of Trey Hendrickson, they got nothing. One guy who will be interesting to keep an eye on is Joseph Osai. Took him a while to recover from that. But when Sam Hubbard got hurt last year and went out, all of a sudden the pass rush started picking up because Joseph Osai was playing more on the left side. He is now a free agent. It wouldn't be surprising to me to see somebody look at the tape for his last 5-6 games this year and go, okay, that's a guy who's worth investing in, and maybe give him a 2 or 3 year kind of prove it deal kind of thing. But Cincinnati should be looking to bring him back and try to find a way to get more pass rush, whether that's invest high draft capital in that or some of your other free agency dollars. But it absolutely starts in the trenches for this team.
How is the buzz right now for the Reds as we get closer? I mean, new manager. I mean, you have Ellie De La Cruz, who's a clear stud on the squad. Is there optimism there in Cincinnati? I was actually watching the Pete Rose documentary on my flight a couple of days ago. It was really, really good. Yeah, what's it like for the Reds right now? I know it's been a while since they've been kind of a consistent contender, but I watched a couple of games last year, and I said, man, there's some talent here. If they can put this thing together, if they can pitch a little bit, and now they have a Hall of Fame manager, I think they might sneak up on some people there in the NL Central.
Yeah, I think Terry Francona coming in is, man, it could be one of the sneaky best offseason moves for anybody, for any team. I know there are people who will look at the managerial position and go, oh, well, they don't really affect the outcome of games. It's kind of maybe overrated whether or not they win or lose based off of the manager. But where this team really is going to excel, I think, and improve under Terry Francona is just they were not they didn't have their fundamentals under them last year. Yes, young and talented, but they played young and stupid, honestly, a lot last year. And I think if Terry Francona, especially with Ellie De La Cruz, who was a 6-WAR player at age 22 last year, finished 8th in the MVP voting, Jesus, in the NL Central and National League last year, and still wasn't a finished product. Like, still a lot of rough edges that need to be smoothed out there. If he can harness him and get him to focus all the time, get him to play with effort all the time, and really hold him kind of accountable. Like, accountability was a big word in Cincinnati last year, because it's like somebody would screw up and then David Bell would just be like, oh, well, be ho-hum about it. And Terry Francona's not that guy, right? He's going to hold people's feet to the fire, and he's going to get this team, focused and get their fundamentals right. And I think that's really going to help, because this was a team that lost a lot of close games last year. And it was always like one dumb play, like one error in the field, or a runner getting thrown out at home, or a runner getting thrown out at third, or a base running blunder somewhere, or, it was always one thing or another that led to a 1-run loss for this team. So I'm not going to sit here and say that they're a World Series contender this year, but if Matt McClain comes back and he's healthy and he's playing like he did in 2023, if Christian Encarnacion Strand is healthy this year and he can show that he was the guy that they traded for, if Hunter Green can improve, sneaky good pitching staff. I like to pick up a Brady Singer as well. I think that bullpen is very, very underrated. I mean, they got Taylor from the from the Giants for absolutely nothing, which was just a great move by GM Nick Kroll. So they've made a lot of nice moves. Austin Hayes could be a nice bounce back candidate this year. They could contend in the NL Central for sure, but I think it's all going to hinge on Elliot de la Cruz and his development and maturity this year. And I think Terry Francona is going to help a lot with that.
Yeah, and I wonder too, because you know how it is with baseball. You get around that 80, 100 game mark. You get to those dog days of summer and like, all right, who's going to continue pushing on? Who's going to possibly make that deal to make their team better? And who's just kind of wither away and just be a team that's like, all right, we'll look for next year. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for them. I'm always looking for that team in any sport. Like, who's going to take that leap? And I think Cincinnati is certainly on that short list in Major League Baseball that can, do some damage in the Central, because as much as we look at teams in the past, this isn't the same Central where the Cardinals were good for so many years. And it was like, all right, you're playing for second, or the Cubs were so good. I mean, Milwaukee's a good team. Don't get me wrong, but I don't look at them as a, 105 win team. Like, I think the Central is one of those divisions where you look at in baseball, and you would know better than me, but it's just like, you get off to a good start and you stay in there. I think the Reds have a good chance. Is there any other team? Am I missing anybody there in the Central that we're worried about necessarily? I don't look at the Pirates in that aspect.
No, I don't think the Pirates are quite there yet. The Cubs could be sneaky good this year. Milwaukee might fall off a little bit, but I said that exact same thing last year, and then they still went out and won. So like and that was one of those things like where they lose Craig Counsell, right? They lose their manager and they still win, right? It didn't matter. They still found a way to win the division. So it's going to be close. I expect this to be one of the more down to earth divisions. I think it's only going to be a one playoff team division this year. I think you're going to get a lot of teams out of the West. Obviously they're going to fill up and win some games here, but I think it's wide open right now between, I would say, probably the Cubs and the Brewers. And then again, there's just a lot of ifs still with the Reds, but they have the talent, the raw talent there to win the division this year. It's just, can Tito harness that or not?
Speaking of raw talent, let's get into Raw, because, obviously me and you, our number one passion is wrestling. Let's start with Monday Night Raw last night. I thought it was a good, solid show all the way around. I tweeted out before I could watch Seth Rollins and Finn Balor wrestle 7 times a week and twice on Mondays. They just, even though I've seen them, there's only a couple of combinations in all of wrestling outside of WWE. I'll put any company in there that you could tell me that those guys are wrestling and I'm not going to go again. Right. Those are 2 guys, because they tell a different story every single time. There was one thing, Finn ran outside the ring last night and he just like shoulder blocked Seth into the thing. And it was like, that's not a wrestling move, but it was just something that was just a heel tactic to just mess with them a little bit. And it's just, that's the way that he tells a story is just fantastic. What else stood out to you from last night's Monday Night Raw?
I think it's pretty clear they have huge plans for Roxanne Perez. I think she is going to be in a main event scene much quicker than I think maybe some other people are anticipating. The fact that she is immediately coming up and she's like bypassed the mid-card scene like altogether, right? Like, remember when Lyra Valkyria came up, NXT Women's Champion, and she was putting a little bit of a program with Becky Lynch, and then Becky left, and then she kind of like runner-up in the Queen of the Ring tournament, and then she was kind of like laying in the weeds there for a little bit. She was working with the party girls for a bit, kind of not being able to get on television, and then once they introduced the mid-card title, it was like, all right, finally, we have something for Lyra to do now. She's going to go win the Intercontinental Championship. Great. Good on her. I think Roxanne's bypassing all of that. I think she's coming up. She's immediately in a program with Bayley, one of the 4 horsewomen heading into WrestleMania season. She has already qualified for Elimination Chamber. She just set a record as an NXT superstar for the longest time in a women's Royal Rumble match in 1 hour and 7 minutes, and finished second to Charlotte Flair. Great video package for her last night. Yeah, she got a little bit of an assist to beat, Raquel. She's still technically a heel, so I'm not too worried about that.
That's the point.
Worried about that.
That's the point too, right? Because she's a heel, right? But I feel like watching it last night, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it felt like people want to cheer for her. Like,
Okay.
it felt like one of those things where it's like, obviously she's going to be more of a babyface in the matchup last night with Raquel because she's a heel. And I know that that's how they're portraying her, as a heel, but it almost felt like in the match last night, people were like, yeah, we kind of respect her because she's a badass. They know her background, getting trained from Booker T. It was almost like and I know she's got the program with Bailey, but sometimes you can hear it in these certain matches where I think they kind of want her to be a babyface.
Yeah, I think they do too. And they know how good she is. She's been around for,
right.
She's 23. She's been around for 10 years. Like, she's already got 10 years experience in the ring.
Right.
She very well may be a female version of Randy Orton, honestly. Somebody who comes in at a very, very young age, maybe sets a record for winning a world title. It would not shock me if she won a world championship this year at age 23 or even 24. Which is not unheard of, right? I mean, Rhea Ripley, I think, won one at 24, 25. Tiffany Stratton's only 25, 26, somewhere in that ballpark. So, it's not completely unheard of, but yeah, that was one of the things, man. She came into NXT and she's just if you talk to her in person, she's just one of the most likable, down to earth, very pleasant, can't help but smile around her, like, type people, just bubbly and, everything. And that's why that heel run for her in NXT was so important, because it allowed her to tap into that other side of her psyche and show that she can be hated at the same time. But the main roster audience, not used to that yet, right? Because there's only still a fraction of the main roster casual audience that watches NXT on Tuesday night. So maybe they're not as familiar with her. So they see this, lovely, bubbly, talented girl walking in there who's really, really good. And they're like, yeah, we want to cheer her. And I wouldn't be surprised if they get that. But there are going to be people who are going to gravitate to her very, very quickly on the main roster, I think.
Without a doubt. And I want to ask you your thoughts on what the WrestleMania card is going to be like. Obviously, it's going to become a lot more clear when a week from Saturday, the Elimination Chamber gets going there north of the border. I think we have an idea where, obviously with the women, we know where Jay and Gunther are going to be at. But how do you see kind of the Rhea's opponent shaking out and then Cody's opponent shaking out as of now, if you had to make a prediction?
Well, I mean, you look at the Elimination Chamber matches that are now set after last night. I mean, the guys' match is absolutely stacked from top to bottom. John Cena, his last Elimination Chamber ever, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, and somebody else I'm forgetting. But still, it's Seth Rollins, right? It's absolutely insane. That said, John Cena's winning. Like, it's happening. It's going to be John Cena. It's going to be Cody Rhodes. He's going to be going for his 17th world title in the main event of WrestleMania. I think you can write that down in pen. The interesting thing to me is going to be what kind of John Cena is going to be going after his 17th world title, because to me, that Royal Rumble press conference with John Cena, where he didn't take any questions and he just issued a statement that said, I'm what's best for business right now. I'm going to WrestleMania. I'm going to Elimination Chamber because I've earned it, and I'm going to get into a WrestleMania and win my 17th world title because I'm what's best for business. That is the closest that he has ever been to sounding like a heel since he was the doctor of thugonomics. Right. I would not be surprised if they go completely balls to the wall with this insane idea of running a heel John Cena that we've never seen during his final run here heading into WrestleMania, especially against Cody, who is the guy right now. He is the guy right now. So that's the interesting part to me. The rest of the card, I think Seth, Roman, Punk, triple threat. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I genuinely don't know who's winning the women's matchup at Elimination Chamber. I just don't. I don't think Alexa is going to win because they put her on SmackDown. So why would they immediately hotshot her back over to Raw to face Rhea Ripley? I don't think Bayley's winning because she's working with Roxanne. So that makes me think that Roxanne's not winning either. But then I look at Bianca and Naomi and I'm like, okay, well, they're the tag team champs. They're in a program right now with Liv and Raquel. They're also waiting for Jade Cargill to come back. So at some point you would think some combination of those five are going to win. So I'm looking at it. I have no idea. I'm going to be genuinely shocked. I know there have been reports that Bianca's coming out of that, but I just feel like there's so much red tape there to clear up. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Maybe it's possible. That one of those six women ends up not being the one who maybe we get an Edge Kofi Kingston type situation, and maybe we get somebody coming from out of the shadows to work their way into that matchup. So I don't know. I don't see a clear front runner out of that Elimination Chamber matchup. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to see that too. I think something happens in this match. I think maybe EO is a factor. I think maybe Becky Lynch is a factor, something like that, where somebody that we haven't really talked about, because you're right, it seems like everybody's going to pair off. And I think however they unveil the Jade Cargill storyline is going to play a part in that too. Because I think you have so many women, and then you have the tag champs in the Elimination Chamber. Like, you're not just going to have them in there because you have other options, right? So I'm with you. I don't think that's so cut and dry. I do think that John Cena will win the Elimination Chamber, but I've been going on this side kind of against everybody else. I don't think that CM Punk wrestles Rollins and Reigns, because his goal is to be in the main event. And that will not be a main event match if it's those three guys.
On night one, it will.
I think
it's Roman Reigns. It's Roman Reigns. There's that factor into it. I think that would be a night one.
Over Jey Uso and Gunther?
Yeah. I know they call it. Look, they say you're going to the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
You don't always. You don't. I mean, if you look, I mean, even go, and I know it's under a different era, but if you go back to like 2018 when Asuka and Shinsuke Nakamura won, neither one of them were in the main event of that WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened a million times before. Heck, the last Women's Royal Rumble winner to even get to the main event was Bianca Belair. So it doesn't always happen. They say it's the main event, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be.
No, for sure. The reason why, and we'll agree to disagree there, because I truly believe that the Yeet movement is the biggest thing when it comes to the fan reaction, and it's tough to have your most popular thing right now not main event. And of course, John Cena and Cody, I think, makes a lot of sense. But that's why I look at CM Punk, and I think somehow, some way, he's going to ask Paul Heyman for that favor. People are saying that he's going to ask Roman. Roman's not the one that gave him the favor. It was Paul Heyman that gave him the favor. I think CM Punk will wrestle with Cody and John Cena as a three-way for the main event, because you don't have to go and worry about people booing Cody, because I think we'll have a similar situation, kind of what you said with Cena. If they do that, I worry that they'll get into a Hogan Rock thing, where you go into it thinking you know who the babyface and the heel is going to be, and then the fans go, no. Because there's going to be a lot of people out there that, they're going to hate on Cena, but they know it's his last WrestleMania too.
Right. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because Rock Hogan was one of the most electric atmospheres in WrestleMania history. So
true, but they didn't plan it that way. They didn't plan that going into the match. We are lucky that Hogan and Rock had the wherewithal to go, oh, snap, we got to listen to the crowd. I think to prevent that, you go with three guys that are polarizing as they come. And now it's not a competition of heel against babyface. It's who's the best. Who is the best? The best in the world, the best right now, or the best of all time, right? So that's where where I'm going with the situation. But listen, I don't think you can go wrong. I know it's going to be awesome.
WWE's in a really great spot right now, where they have many organically over, baby faces, so much to the point where you got guys like LA Knight. Like, what the hell is LA Knight going to do at WrestleMania this year? You've got, I'm so mad. Yeah. I'm so genuinely mad I didn't see the Jey Uso win coming a mile away, because I should have. I genuinely should have. I remember, being in the press box at Lucas Oil, stuff packed up, getting ready to bolt down to the press conference, and I'm standing next to my colleague, Zach Haydorn, and I'm just sitting there. I'm watching these two guys going at each other, and I just looked over, and I was like, this is a really nice spot for Jey. This is a really nice rub for all the work that he's done to be, one of the last two standing before Cena wins the Royal Rumble here. And then literally Jey shoves him off the apron, and I'm like, what? But the more I thought about it, I'm like, I should have seen that coming a mile away. It was a total sleight of hand with all those names that they put in there. But it was and a great rub for Jey Uso to be the one to walk away from it.
That's why we gotta love it, man. That's why we love it so much. And we'll definitely have you on before WrestleMania to talk about it all. It's our guy Rick Ucchino, Sports Illustrated, Fightful, Reds Talk, Bengals on Sirius, Cincinnati Radio up there, iHeart and ESPN. Rick, great catching up with you, my brother. Be well and enjoy the wrestling the rest of this week, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate you.
You got it, pal. Rick Ucchino. Go follow him, man. This guy knows a little bit about everything. And it's great to get the insight, of course, talking a little wrestling, but also when we started the conversation about the Cincinnati Bengals, because a lot of people here in the Tampa Bay area are wondering, what is the deal with Trey Hendrickson? Could he be a guy that the Buccaneers trade for, bring him in, help fortify that pass rush? Maybe. But the other name that he brought up, Joseph Osai, because I know a lot of people that are following this team are going, yeah, well, we don't want to spend all that trade. We don't want to trade all that draft capital. We don't have to bring in a guy that's going to cost 20, 25, 30, 35 million dollars as an outside pass rusher. So can we find that next Shaq Barrett? Joseph Osai could be one of those guys. Could be one of those options that you bring him into this Todd Bowles defense and see him flourish. And then possibly he could have a season like we saw from Shaq Barrett a couple of years ago when he went from a backup to one of the best pass rushers, not just on the team, but in the NFL. All right, let's continue this conversation with the one and only John Romano from the Tampa Bay Times to talk the Rays Stadium saga, the latest of what is going on there. John, what's going on, buddy? How are you? You're muted, buddy. You're muted. You're muted. Sorry. Oh. We'll get you in there. There we go.
How about that?
how are you, John? Sorry.
I'm doing well. I thought we were talking wrestling. Do we have to do Ray Stadium? Is that the necessity here?
Yeah, I get. Yeah. Well, listen. Who's your favorite wrestler of all time, John?
Oh God, I haven't watched wrestling since the 70s. I'd have to go with Dusty Rhodes or something like that. It's been a while for me.
The American Dream. Yeah, man. It's one of those things. It's funny because my dad, big baseball, he played baseball in college, played basketball in college, big sports guy, never liked wrestling. But me, I just saw it when I couldn't even speak English. I couldn't speak at all. And I just got hooked on the wrestling and I watch it just as much as I watch anything else. And anytime like I can tie it in, I do it because I think you're similar in the way of like, you look at all the sports and you kind of look at some of the underlying stories, right? And you look at some of the things that make people fall in love with the sports or the entertainment. And just, it's something that it's like a bug, man. I can't scratch it off of me. It's insane. But yeah,
it was a big thing for us when we were kids. I mean, Gordon Soley, championship wrestling from Florida on Channel 44. I mean, that was must-see TV when I was growing up as a kid.
Did you ever go to the Armory?
Never went to the Armory. Went to some matches at the old Bayfront Center in downtown St. Petersburg.
Yeah, I went to it was the last wrestling show at the Armory. And this was like, God, 10 years ago or so. And I was invited as a special guest, and it was just all the old timers sitting there. B. Brian Blair and the whole crew. Gerald Briscoe was there, and they were like, "Son, you know you're wrestling." I go, "You got to learn history. If you don't learn history, you'll be condemned to repeat it." And they're like, "Even in wrestling?" I said, "Even in wrestling, because you know when the stories are coming." One story I don't know if we should have seen coming or not seen coming. This whole Rays Stadium saga, John. It's probably right out of a WWE storyline with you don't know who the transparent people are. You don't know who's telling the truth. And I love your recent article on it because as much as the Rays, you want to say you want to keep it here. I mean, I just find it very weird, John, because when I worked at iHeart for 10 years, the Countdown opening day was a show every single year was to grow the interest of the local team here. Chris Archer came to the radio station. Kevin Kiermaier came to the radio station. Now, the big takeaway from this year is throwing darts at the St. Pete City Council and the Pinellas County Commission. Like, where are we at right here? I feel like I'm just kind of stuck, in a canoe without a paddle in Lake Tampa Bay Rays right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Rays, I understand they have a lot of anger. They have a lot of frustration with the way things have gone down. But it just seems like over the last 6 weeks or so that instead of looking for solutions, they just want to keep, poking the bear, saying this is why we're in this mess to begin with. They just really haven't come out and said exactly what it is they want, other than the fact that they want more money out of the county and the city because they've lost money due to so many different factors in terms of the hurricanes. That they're not going to be at Tropicana Field, so their revenues are not going to be as high. There was the 49-day delay while the Pinellas County Commission was not approving the bonds right away, which caused the Rays to stop the production and having people move into town to begin the redevelopment. There's just so many moving pieces here, but it just seems like we're at a point where everybody just wants to point fingers instead of coming up with a solution.
What are they so angry about? Like, that's my whole big thing. Like, I've read through so many of the different articles, and we've had Colleen write on a bunch of times to kind of talk through everything, and Topper, and I just don't know, like, what are they so angry about? Like, if there's a disagreement, that's one thing, but I mean, it just seems like the Pinellas County Commission and the St. Pete City Council, like, they voted on, they want this to happen. So it doesn't seem like they're the ones that aren't being transparent or not trying to work through this. I just wonder, where is this anger coming from?
Well, it starts mostly with the Pinellas County Commission. They, up until the past week, the Rays seem to have had a really good relationship with the city. They were dealing well with Mayor Welch. They were dealing pretty well with most of the city council folks. They sort of felt like those people had gone to the wall for them in terms of getting as much as they could to help them. The problem all begins with the Pinellas County Commission meeting back in late October. And the commissioners, they're rewriting history a little bit over the last couple of months. They're saying, well, we went through hurricanes and we had to take a pause. We had to reassess. That really wasn't the reason that they delayed the bond vote. At that time, Chris Latvala was pushing the idea of the Rays playing temporarily in Clearwater instead of Tampa, which hadn't been announced yet, but it seemed to be moving in that direction. And that's the only thing that was brought up in that commission meeting, was they should be playing in Clearwater instead of Tampa. And if they're not going to be partners with us, then we're not going to approve this bond. That's where the whole thing began. It upended everything that the Rays were planning in terms of what they were doing with Heinz, the Heinz Corporation. They had people moving in from all over the country to begin this whole process of redeveloping the land, not just the stadium, but the land itself. And I think the Pinellas County Commission at some point realized we're about to be blamed here for mucking up this entire $6.5 billion redevelopment deal. So by early December, two of the commissioners had reversed themselves in terms of what they voted for in the summertime and even what they voted for in October, and said, yes, let's go ahead with the bond votes. So once that happened, everything should have been back on track. Right. The Rays say that the delay will end up costing them all kinds of money because they slowed down the development, because they stopped bringing in the Heinz people, because they stopped all their, what they were going to order for construction and things like that. They said it completely upended everything. So now they were way behind, and the stadium would not open until 2029 instead of 2028. It was going to cost them more, just the inflation costs of construction would go up 10%, which on a $1.3 billion stadium could cost you $130 million. It was going to mean that they were not going to get revenues in 2028 like they thought they would from a new stadium. They were going to lose that, plus all the revenues they were losing playing temporarily outside of Tropicana Field. So that's where their anger comes from, is they felt like they had a deal and the county commission sort of went back on what everybody had agreed on. But here's where it gets sort of funky is, okay, so there was a delay. It was 49 days. Should that really cost you an entire year of construction? Right. Will it really cost you $130 or $140, $150 million more in construction costs? A lot of the people we're talking to are saying the Rays are being, they're overstating how much this is going to cost them. And the Rays have not yet shown anybody exactly what it's going to cost them. They've not put figures down on a piece of paper and said, okay, this is where we're getting this figure from. This is why it's going to cost us this much money. So now this is where you start getting into the finger pointing. And now you've got county commissioners who are criticizing the Rays, very heavily criticizing owner Stuart Sternberg, which is getting the Rays even more angry. And now it just seems like the whole thing is going to fall apart, at least in my mind, unnecessarily. it's almost like it's become a personal vendetta between everybody. And the deal is, it looks like the Rays are not going to meet the deadline of March 31st. They have to have certain things in order by March 31st in order for the deal to continue. And I don't think they're going to even try to meet that March 31st deadline. They're just going to let it lapse and see where things go from there.
Yeah, I find it because I've had Chris. I was the first person to have Chris Lavala on to hear his side, because he really was, I think, to a lot of people, like public enemy number one. And I was like, well, let's hear what he has to say too, because I think it's important to hear as much information from all the sides. And to me, one of the most frustrating things of this whole thing is the lack of transparency, as you just alluded to, from the Rays when they're talking about how much money it's going to cost. When they have, to my knowledge, an independent kind of stadium expert saying he doesn't think that it's going to be costing that much money, and they won't even be honest with the figure. I mean, think about it, John. If you're going into business with somebody and they don't want to be honest with the numbers, I mean, you got a right to feel some type of way. And Chris Lavala did reverse his vote, correct? So he was one of the guys that did reverse his vote and approve the bond. So it does seem petty, may be too strong of a word, but you eventually got what you wanted, but you're still harboring that ill will if you're the Rays. And saying, I don't know if, when Stu comes out and says, well, I don't know if we have the money, but I don't know if we want to spend the money. Like when you say stuff to people and you're already kind of not the most favorite owner here in Tampa Bay, like that's going to go over like a lead balloon.
Well, and there is a tremendous amount of nuance that is involved in all of this. Mm-hmm. And if you go back to when the deal was made, the Rays are very tough negotiators. Right. They've dealt with, two different mayors in Tampa, 3 or 4 mayors in St. Petersburg. They've not been able to get this deal done for many, many years. So they finally get it done this time. Basically it's because the way the Rays look at it is that they need more revenues. They do not make as much money as most of the other teams in Major League Baseball, so they needed to increase their revenues. That's the whole point of a new stadium. But if they have to spend $700 million to build a new stadium, that's sort of taken away from their revenues. So they have to basically make up the $700 million they're going to spend on the stadium. They have to make sure that their revenues are going to increase by an amount that exceeds that $700 million over 30 years. So that's sort of where the deal comes from. They got this deal, which they felt like was going to increase their revenues enough that it was worth making the deal. Once the hurricanes hit, once they lose the use of Tropicana Field for a year or two, once they say the delay in the bond vote cost them an extra year, is going to cost them more in construction, they now say that the revenues they were going to get is no longer going to equal the amount going out. And that's why they don't like the deal anymore. They said it was such a narrow margin that they were walking that anything that upset that deal was going to cost them money and was going to make the deal untenable for them. And that's where they are right now. Is that true? Is that accurate? I'm not saying it's not, but
we don't know. We don't know.
But they're not showing any evidence.
Right.
And that's where it's getting into an issue.
Yeah. Telling us that you're going to be operating at a loss over the long term. We had Stu on last year during FanFest, John, and he's like, yeah, with $90 million payroll, I'm going to be taking a loss on my P&L statement this year. And I'm just like, okay. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's hard too, because as much as the city council has their opinion, the commission has their opinion, we have our opinion. There's also millions of people around here in the Tampa Bay area that were affected by the storm that aren't happy with the price of eggs. The last thing I want to hear is a professional sports owner complaining about taking a loss on his P&L statement when your payroll is less than half of the people at the top, right? So, I mean, he's not the Rays. We'll put Stu and the Rays together in this example. They're not doing themselves any favors here, are they, John? Because for all the people that have, given them the benefit of the doubt, they love them regardless. The people that are on the periphery, the people that can kind of take it or leave it, are ambivalent about the team. This certainly doesn't help. And if they build a new stadium, where's the good faith, right? You know this. You've been at Amalie Arena. Like, there's people that don't know the difference between, a blue chip prospect and the blue line, but they go to the Lightning game. They don't care. They don't even think about it. They hand over their credit card because they know they're going to have a good time and it's a great experience. I just fear, regardless if this gets done or not, there could be some irreparable damage between the team and this community. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Oh, absolutely. If they let that March 31st deadline pass and effectively kill the deal, I just don't see any way that anybody in Tampa Bay, whether it's Pinellas or Hillsborough, St. Pete or Tampa, I just don't see anybody putting the money up for another stadium for Stu Sternberg. They may put it up for a different owner, and that's often how these things happen in Major League Baseball. It takes one owner, who ends up becoming the bad guy, and once they sell, the new owner comes in, like riding the white horse,
the white knight. Yep.
Yeah, and that then they get the stadium built, and that may be the direction we're going here. And I agree. I think the Rays, from a PR standpoint, I just don't know that they've handled it very well because they're just very secretive. They're very tight with information. And it doesn't help when you're trying to get politicians and voters and fans on your side to sort of keep them out of the loop. And they've certainly kept people out of the loop for the last 2 months. Once the county commission approved the bonds. And to me, this is all, it's very sad because you could make the argument that Stuart Sternberg and the Rays have held their end of the bargain in terms of providing a Major League Baseball quality experience for the past 18 years. They've done much better than Tampa Bay fans have done in terms of supporting the Rays. Since 2008, the Rays have the third best record in Major League Baseball. It's the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Rays. That's ridiculous, for a small market team to be up there with the Yankees and Dodgers in terms of winning. And yet during that entire time, the Rays are like 28th in attendance. So they're not getting the support that teams like the Yankees and the Dodgers normally get when you win as much as they're winning. So from that standpoint, the Rays feel like they've held up their end of the bargain, and Tampa Bay has sort of lagged behind in terms of attendance. And whenever I say this, I don't want to point the finger at fans because to me, it's not the fans' fault. Tickets are expensive, Life is expensive. If you don't want to spend money to go to a Bucks game, to go to a Rays game, to go to a Lightning game, I am not going to criticize you. That's your decision. You have to, handle your own household budget the way you see fit. The problem is more as a marketplace. Does Tampa Bay have the wherewithal in terms of corporations who are buying season tickets and buying suites and sponsorships and things like that? That's where most of the money comes from in major league markets. I was told many years ago that the way season tickets are sold in most markets for Major League Baseball, 2/3 of your season tickets are bought by corporations, 1/3 by your everyday fans. In Tampa Bay, it was flip-flopped. Wow. It was 1/3 was corporation and 2/3 were fans, which meant that the Rays were having to sell, individual tickets on a game-by-game basis, and that's hard to do business that way. So for a lot of reasons, this marketplace, whether it's, the lack of, Fortune 500 corporations, whether it's too many retired people on fixed incomes, whether it's, our major industry is tourism, which is generally lower paying jobs than, in a service industry than, you look at Atlanta with Home Depot and Delta and CNN and, all these different major corporations. We just don't have that in Tampa Bay. So there's not enough money here. So I'm sort of going off on this tangent.
No, it's a great, I'm glad you brought that up because,
but the point is the Rays have been great corporate partners for a long time. And I think they're just sort of pissing it all away with the way things have gone the last 6 months.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad you went on that tangent because people ask me a lot about that because I grew up in New York. I went to Yankee games religiously. I went to Mets games. My household was split right down the middle. Dad's side Yankee fans, mom's side Met fans, Jets, Giants. Like, I had to know what family I was around to not cheer too loud or too little. And then I coached baseball. So I coached baseball for 10 years before I got into radio. Every age, high school ball, traveling all around the country. And I saw tens and hundreds of thousands of kids on baseball fields every single weekend, John, here in the state of Florida. So this is a baseball hotbed. I mean, you look at the major leaguers that, the Pete Alonsos and the Kyle Tuckers of the world, right? And I wonder, people ask me my opinion about the attendance, and I'd love to have this conversation with you. I always say that it's not the quality of issues. I think it's the quantity of issues, right? It's because the payroll, it's because people don't like stew. It's because there's other things you could spend your money on, because people want to be outside and go to the beach. There's just a lot to it. And that conversation is kind of taken that next step now because of the argument that you just made about the record. Now, instead of the Rays looking at it and going, well, our record's great, how come they don't take that next step and go, well, all right, well, maybe it's more than just winning on the baseball field? Because obviously we saw a couple of years ago in the playoffs, it didn't matter. The game didn't sell out. So if it's not just that, if your big selling point to your team isn't just the product on the field, I think the Rays have been short-sighted in not trying to look at other ways to try to get more people invested and keeping their guys around. Because you and I both know nobody's going to buy a jersey for the Rays because they know it's one of those things where the guy's not going to be here in 2 or 3 years. So if the team itself doesn't have staying power, how are corporations going to invest in a product where they don't trust the players, they don't trust the manager, they don't trust the owner, or they don't trust the players that are going to be here, they don't trust the owner? That kind of stuff, unfortunately, supersedes what the product is on the field. I know it's unlike maybe other markets, but I feel like the Rays haven't really looked at everything to try to get more people in the building because it's worked at times, but not on a consistent enough basis.
That's an excellent point. And I hear that all the time, that, you just when you fall in love with a player, they're sending them somewhere else. Unfortunately, it's sort of this chicken and egg kind of thing. that's how the Rays continue to win, right? Is they don't lock themselves into these long-term contracts that end up being an albatross around their neck. They do it with younger players. They keep the younger players while they're still under control and their salaries are somewhat manageable, and that's how they win. So if they end up signing, whatever pick whatever bad contract you want to come up with in Major League Baseball.
Anthony Rendon.
Yeah. If the Rays had signed Anthony Rendon, they would be in last place for the next 5 years, right? Because too much of their payroll is devoted to one guy who's no longer helping them. And they can't, that's not the way they win. They can only win with, versatility and, having players who do certain things well and are complemented by other players on the roster and using all 26 men on the roster. That's their formula to win. And the fact that they're not drawing people even while winning, that becomes a problem then, because then they can't go out and invest in those other players, those big ticket players. And then they have to trade Blake Snell and they have to trade James Shields and whoever else over the years that they've traded because they can no longer afford them. So, and I think that to some degree we were talking about their anger. I think that plays a part in it as well, that, the Rays are like, would you rather us be Pittsburgh or Cincinnati or, one of these other low revenue markets that never wins? Maybe they keep their players around, but they don't win. We're putting a winner on the field and they're still not showing up. That's a problem. It's a market-wide problem. It's a franchise problem. And, to sort of argue against what I've just been talking about, Stu was able to buy this team back in 2005 for all of these very reasons.
Right.
Stu is not a multi-billionaire. He doesn't have Steve Cohen money. He doesn't have, Steinbrenner money, whoever else you want to say. He's obviously a wealthy man, but he was able to afford this franchise because this franchise did not have a very high value because they weren't drawn. It wasn't a healthy franchise. So he was able to buy this franchise. The team is now worth, I don't know, 10 times what he paid for it in 2005. So he's made his money back in some ways, but the only way he can actually cash in on that is by selling the team. Right. He's not making enough money year to year to make those investments in players worth it. Once he sells the team, then, it's not a problem for him. And unfortunately, I think that's where we're headed. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months, but sometime in the next 2 to 4 years, I do think he'll end up selling the franchise. And that's basically the way it's going to survive in Tampa Bay, because as I said, I don't think any politician is going to stick their neck out to give him $700, $800 million to build a stadium any longer.
So I think that's kind of what we've been saying. It's ironic because when I had Chris Zavala on, he said the same thing pretty much. It's like the only way, and we can all discuss the different ways to get there, who is right, who is wrong, who's transparent, who's not telling the whole truth. But it seems like there's consensus from multiple sides that this eventually just all ends with Stu selling the team. You agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's the direction we're heading. I don't think he's in any hurry to do it now. It's almost kind of strange in that, Major League Baseball, the commissioner, Rob Manfred, has made it clear he thinks Tampa Bay is a major league market and he wants a team here. So he sort of forced the team's hand to say, you've got to get Tropicana Field fixed because you need a permanent place to play at least for the next 3 to 4 years. You can't, be this vagabond team going from spring training field to spring training field. So by doing that, he sort of gave the Rays, a longer runway here. They now have several years. Once Tropicana Field gets fixed, the lease goes through 2028. So they now have time to sort of decide, okay, we're not going to sell it at a bargain. We're going to get as much money as we can selling this team. And hey, meanwhile, we've still got a pretty good roster. We've got a chance at winning a pennant here. So why not, enjoy the next 2 or 3 years while we look for sellers and see how many ball games we can win. I think that's the place that they're in right now.
It's funny you said vagabonds. That got me thinking about Can You Feel the Love Tonight from Elton John. Kings and vagabonds. Because I feel like that's kind of the story of this whole Rays team. It doesn't matter if they're kings on the field. There might be vagabonds traveling from field to field here in the Bay Area. John, this has been such a pleasant conversation. Thank you so much, man. Keep up the fantastic work. I tell people all the time, everybody over there at the Tampa Bay Times does such a great job. And to support local, subscribe to the Tampa Bay Times today. Make sure you go to tampabay.com/sports. And again, supporting local is the most important thing. With me no longer at iHeart doing this thing, I've had a ton of support and a ton of your colleagues there at the Times joining me. So yeah, we gotta do this all for each other. So appreciate your time. Thank you very much, man, for making our show a whole hell of a lot smarter. Have a great rest of your week, man. I'll see you around soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jay.
You got it, man. That's the conversation that needs to be had right there. John Romano all over it. Again, check out everybody at the Tampa Bay Times. They do such a great job. We know our guy Eddie Ancina joins us every Thursday at 1:30. Our friend Colleen Wright. We've had Rick Stroud and Topkin. I think we've got the whole group on now at the Tampa Bay Times. Did I get everybody? Yeah. I mean, Joey Knight's been on. Yeah, I got to have to see who else. I got to go through the directory there at the Tampa Bay Times to see Elton John Romano. I like that. Somebody just put that in the chat. That is great. I love you guys. This has been really, really cool. Yeah, man. And a lot of times, like, you kind of go back and forth, right? You see what John Romano has to say, Chris LaValla has to say, and I know Chris LaValla hasn't been particularly enthused with some of the coverage from the Tampa Bay Times, but you listen to what John has to say, and that's what you're going to get here on the program. You're going to get difficult conversations sometimes. You're going to get a little bit of everything. Right? It's not going to be the same old stuff every single day over and over and over again. I'm sorry. This isn't going to be NFL, 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 and more NFL. And it's just not, I'm not going the route of the mainstream media. I'm going to literally talk about everything. And I'm going to post this on social media. You can watch individual interviews. You can check out the clips, but you are going to get a little bit of something, everything, a little bit of everything right here on the Jay Recher podcast. You're going to get your NFL. You're going to get your NBA. You're going to get your NHL. You're going to get your baseball. You're going to get your UFC. You're going to get your wrestling. You're going to get tennis. You're going to get golf. You're going to get soccer. You're going to get a little bit of everything here on the program. We're going to talk about our local stuff here, but we're also going to go take a deep dive into other cities where some of the biggest stories are in this country and on this continent. And we're going to be able to chat with guys like Rick Ucchino, who joined us today from Cincinnati. My guy, Nick Cattle's up there in Boston. There's going to be a lot of different people on the program. And I really, really appreciate John Romano joining me today, Rick Ucchino joining me today, Jeff Attinella joining me today on the show. Man, this has been a lot of fun. And we're going to keep the train rolling. I tell you, and I ask you, please let people know about the Jay Recher Podcast live every single day at noon right here on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter/X. I will be on the call tonight for USF in Florida State, the South Florida Bulls Radio Network. Go check me out there. I'll be posting it on my socials here in a little bit after I change and I put my green on, because I got to get my green on. But yeah, man, I love talking baseball, man. There's just something about talking about the game. The Race Stadium saga has been something I know is a pain in the ass, but we're going to get it from every angle, and we're not going to talk about it until, we're blue in the face. But when there's new developments, we're going to chat about it, and we're going to bring in the experts, and we're going to try to inform you as fans here in the Tampa Bay area, because I want baseball to stay here. I really do. I'm excited about the season. I'm excited about the pitching staff. I think they can do some good things on the field, but you guys got to be in the know when it comes to our teams here in the Tampa Bay area. And that is why I am here for you. All right. Follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube. I'm working on the Patreon, working on the Discord. We're taking this to the next level here in 2025. 2025 is the jump off point. 2026, we're going to crush it even more. But this whole year, we're building and we're building and we're stacking and stacking and stacking. If you want to advertise, if you want to be a partner here on the Jay Recher Podcast, hit me up at Jay Recher. You can email me, jayrecher10@yahoo.com. And let's do some big things here in 2025. Big show coming up tomorrow. We got some great guests coming up on the show. I know for a fact our guy Eric Erlinson is going to join us at 1 o'clock, talk all things Four Nations. Yeah, we got it. And David Terry, my guy, got to get Captain Mike on. He will join us. I'm going to reach out to him at some point and get the man, the myth, the legend, Captain Mike Anderson. I love you all. Follow me on socials. Go Bulls tonight. We'll see you tomorrow at noon right here on the Jay Recher